on the front lines, defending and protecting communities. So, I mean, you know, it's not like a one for one, like, you know, if I don't do it, then they'll still always be around. It's like, it's an ecology. Like, we need people to show up.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Are the plans to accelerate door knocking for college campuses, are there plans, I'm sorry, to accelerate door knocking for college campuses given the end of the semesters?
So colleges, the dorms and college living facilities are counted in the group quarters, and so the U.S. Census Bureau will reach out to the school administrator to do that count. So we won't necessarily need to do door knocking on dorms, but for for students that may live off campus, our organizations should be door knocking soon. We gave a grant to UIC to reach some young and mobile, and we have plans to work with like community colleges to reach other students, non-traditional students, and so we need to get the word out at universities, but I don't think that there needs to be a big door knocking on campus because that count is already underway. They started reaching out in February to correlate with the semester to get students before they go home or study abroad for the summer.
Yeah, if you download that UIC census presentation, so you know one of the slides is that 85% of UIC students commute. That was the whole logic behind our Census Ambassadors program, is that we knew that if all we had to do is just get in front of eyeballs in our classrooms, share why it's important. And what we're asking our students, like the faculty that have, like so CUPA faculty and some LAS and political science and others, they have shown this slide deck. And all we're asking is for those students to just go back home and talk with their families, their caregivers, to share this information and just help support fill out the census. Like we don't need, that's like step one. Everything else, like door knocking and stuff like that, if you want to get involved, it's the Census Ambassadors Project is how we're trying to funnel more active students into like a sort of more intensive. The other place you can go, actually, and I didn't put it on here because lots of details, is the Office of Leadership and Student Engagement. Okay, so if you go through there, there's a volunteer portal, and just look up Census Ambassadors, and you'll get immediately plugged in to many of these subs who are on campus right now looking for students who may be in your neighborhoods and communities, but you got to sign up first and just reach out so that we know you want to actually help. But that's the second level of intensity. And the third is Census Ambassadors, where you're spending 10 hours a week actually giving presentations. So, yeah.
And how does Illinois' census process compare with what other states are doing?
Much better.
Well, we have the biggest appropriation for each person for census outreach and education. So we are better in that area, right? We have more money, which means we can do more and can put a more aggressive touch on the hard to count populations. We got the hub and spoke model from California, and that seems to be working, where you have the coalition leader and they give grants to a smaller community-based organization, and they can give grants to another community-based organization. So the hub and the spoke and another spoke, because we know that trusted messengers are what will get the word out. And so I think that is where we are kind of similar. Another area where we're better is that there's some states that are like, we are not putting forth any census investments, right? Like Texas.
Yeah.
So then we're way better than them, right? And so I think that.
Yeah,
that's
and then in terms of the visualization too, when we started working on this, we looked at other examples, and you know, in terms of the functionalities of the website for reporting, and then the visualization and our own projection on where the hard to count populations might be and what populations those are, that's definitely very, very different and much more precise than what other states are doing.
Yeah, and just to add, our model is really centered on the power that the community-based nonprofits bring, that they are the trusted messenger. You'll see more of them being the ones who have the Erie House T-shirt with the U.S. Census versus having an Illinois Census T-shirt, because we really believe in this bottom-up approach. However, we also do believe in building the plane, building the infrastructure, building the mapping system, right? So I think that we are truly trying to build it on both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and we have, I mean, with the platform, we are reaching out to that ground level activity and giving them the tools to then do their work more effectively.
Yeah.
Is there any fear of interference in the census, just given the world we're living in?
Yeah, of course.
That's already happened.
Yeah.
It's already happened.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the whole citizenship question.
I mean, I guess I meant sort of more sub-rosa type of interference.
Like interference, like I mean,
Well, with the online.
Oh.
The hacking stuff?
Hacking.
oh,
No, I mean, we have actually discussed it, and so I'm not going to reveal, but I mean, we have protections in place, but I won't say more because I don't want to.
right.
So it's like, no, but definitely that's always an issue.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's like, so we have protections in place, and then there isn't really like incredibly sensitive information there that would be like incredibly dangerous to specific people. Like if there are no identifiers or things like that that would make people vulnerable if it were hacked, but still we do have protections in place. So essentially what happens is that each organization and user within the organization and all of the subs, they all have to register. There's a whole process of vetting all of the information. So there are a lot of safeguards put in place. You have to have an account to be able to do that. You can't just, all you can see publicly is the maps, what's coming out of the process and what is informing the process, but not the data from the activities. That is all, password secure information and process.
And if I may add one thing that so as you can see, I like to remind people of some stuff, right? So one of the things that I like to remind people, especially now that right here that I'm in a college setting, is that if you are requesting a Pell Grant, you are going into FAFSA.gov, right? So there you are already sharing a whole bunch of information. One of the things that I tell people is that a lot of the information, I mean, and to your point, Moira, the census is 9 questions. Right, and it's not a social security question. It's not a, so these are just things that I try to remind people, right? That that there of course there's always a threat, but there has been for years now all of the mechanisms to try to make sure that everything that is online is as safe as it can be.
Perhaps what was meant was more the threat of undercounting, even if the counting is there. For political purposes, not for purposes of individuals.
So that would be like a census.
A U.S. Census
Yeah,
Bureau?
well, I mean, I've heard, okay, so you all remember Obamacare? And, or maybe not, some of the older ones, okay? But, so when that platform rolled out, it immediately crashed because of just they underestimated that. So that, I mean, maybe those were bots, I don't know, but I mean, they just had underestimated and right now the news from the census and then those who are monitoring census testing is that they started late, they don't have enough money. What is the likelihood of this platform potentially crashing? So that's why we're also emphasizing, make sure, there's a phone option, okay, that's pretty fast, and then as well as the mail-in, right? Like just multiple ways, just in case if you can't log in, you still have a backup plan. So things like that.
Okay. I have 2 more questions up here, so if anyone has another question, please give it to us. This one says it's for Moira. What data response rates were used for the data mapping? For example, was it the 2010 census, and how was it built?
Yeah, so essentially what we used was, we looked at and we created a methodology with the 2010 data, but then we used more recent data from, so that was census data, but then we used more recent data from the American Community Survey. And that's what we used to project going forward because there have been a lot of recent demographic changes, right? So that's what we used looking forward. And so what we did is, again, we went through several iterations of looking at, different statistical approaches to see relationships between factors, and every time we meet, I was like, well, but what about, and I would, the people working with me who were listed there, they were all happy to do it in the end, but it was like, no, a question. But geography did matter, and intuitively it did matter, and that was something that really was novel and was brought as part of one of the iterations and discussions. And so we did it in parts. We did it as a progression, as an iterative process, and I remember sharing it with Kathleen and Janet, and then I asked, what other demographic factors should we do, kind of like a matrix of geography with demography, and my technicians were just like starting to pull their hair out. But, Kathleen said, no, but I think that we need to look, I said, what are the main demographic aspects? And so she shared, Hispanic, African American, and poverty. Yeah. And so that's what we did, and we tried, and we did see that there were differences. So we were really looking at it and slicing the information in different ways to get to this comprehensive model. The model that you see then is a combination, so the map shows a combination of the geographic models, but then also having as these other layers of information that's socio-demographic ones.
Yeah.
So it's like a really multi-method kind of approach, and the process itself was an iterative one.
Yeah. No, and it was actually it was one of the more fun experiences because, so having worked on the census and also working in Asian American communities, so there is sort of built-in just knowledge of there's a Lao American community out in Elgin, and I know what's going on with them, but they might not be missed if we are only looking in Chicago metropolitan statistics. There's been a lot of growth in Latino populations in the collar counties because of migrant workers and all this who are nowhere on the radar. So informing some of that and then coming up with a model that, what's gratifying is to see the model actually reflecting the things that we know are going on the ground. So it's kind of cool to see that. That's cool.
Thank you. Okay, and the last question I have is another, I think a simple one. Do you need to receive the print mailing in order to respond online?
No.
Is there a login ID or something in the printed letter?
So when you get the invitation, if you get it, there is a code, but you don't need that to respond. So you can just go in and respond without it.
It'll give you the 9-digit zip code if you want it.
Yeah.
With or without it, March 12th, have at it, you count it.
That's right.
9 days.
Anything else you'd like to say in closing?
If you all know of any organizations or groups that are having census events or need to, and you want us, Oswaldo and I, to come speak, let us know. We travel the state, like Kathleen says. We'll be more than willing. If you need talking points, we can help you too if you want to do the talking. But just get counted, spread the word, make sure you're counted. Oswaldo mentioned that the census is in the Constitution, and I always like to remind people, and I say this, and I know Black History Month ended, but that's fine. I am a Black woman unapologetically, right? And so when that Constitution was written, people that look like me and Oswaldo and maybe all of us were not considered a full person. We were counted as 3/5. So if nothing else, everybody needs to be counted and make the government see us and give our state the resources that we need and that we deserve so that we don't lose out for the next 10 years. Because we only got one shot. We don't get to get a redo when we see the results and say, it was too low, let's try again, right?
Right,
We don't get it's just a one time.
That's a great way to end.
Well said.
Great way to end. Please join me in thanking our speakers.
I like that. Right on. I don't know how we do this.
I was like fixing my necklace, and I didn't realize it was like